Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here again to take that big pile of research and make it stick.
And today, we're diving into some vintage gear, specifically a piece that's really key for certain funk sounds, but maybe doesn't get the spotlight it deserves.
Which one are we talking about?
The MXR MX 120 envelope filter, also known as the M120.
Ah, okay, the M120. So this is basically an Ottawa, right? Or an envelope follower. It makes that talking sound based on how you play.
Exactly. The envelope part is crucial. You know, the shape of a sound's volume over time, the attack, decay. The pedal follows that shape, that envelope, and uses your volume to sweep the filter.
Okay. In MXR, they were pretty straightforward about it, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. Their description was pure function, a professionally designed, competitively priced tone modifier, which enables you to create a variety of wah-wah sounds.
Simple enough. But that doesn't quite explain why people hunt these things down today.
No, it doesn't. And that's our mission here. We want to piece together the history, look at the quirks that make it special, and understand its legacy.
Yeah.
Why this beige box?
Okay, let's place it first. The MXR lineup in the 70s was legendary. Where does the MX120 fit in?
Right smack in the middle of that first big innovative wave. It came out around 1976.
Okay.
Part of their reference series, alongside pedals like the MX108, the MX118, some real classics.
Yeah, things like the Phase 90, the distortion pleasure, they were everywhere. Was the envelope filter as big a seller?
Probably not quite as huge, but it definitely had a solid run. Production started in 76, went into the early 80s, maybe even 83, according to some.
But when you see them for sale now, they're mostly late 70s.
Yeah, 76 to 79 seems to be the sweet spot for listings you find online, like on Reverb.
And this is classic Rochester, New York MXR, right? The heartland.
Oh, yeah, definitely Rochester made. Tone Home confirms a 1979 unit from there. But it wasn't just a U.S. thing.
It got around.
It did. It was distributed pretty widely in Europe. We even know the price in Germany back in 82 was 230 Deutschmarks, which, wasn't cheap back then.
Right. Okay, let's talk about how it looks. Because it doesn't look like a typical flashy 70s pedal.
No, it really doesn't. It's always described as like an inconspicuous dirt-colored stomp box.
Yeah, dirt-colored.
Yeah, beige, off-white, maybe dirty white. It kind of looks like it belongs on office equipment from that era.
Which is funny given how sought after it is.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the big MXR collector thing, script logo versus block logo.
Yes, the classic debate. And normally with MXR, script logo means early, right? First runs, most desirable, usually most expensive, like with the Phase 90s.
So you'd think the earliest M120s would have that script logo on the outside.
That's what makes sense, but no. This is where the M120 throws a curveball. Pretty much everyone agrees, collectors, forums, all the original envelope filters have the block logo on the outside.
Wait, really? No script logos on the casing at all?
Not painted on the outside, no.
Yeah.
You might find a script logo stamp on the inside, like on the base plate, especially on really early ones, maybe transitional units. Some people whisper about 75 origins. But if you're looking at the pedal itself, sitting on a board, you're looking for that block logo. That's key for anyone hunting one down.
Okay, that's a really important detail. So we know when it was made, what it looks like. But the real magic is the sound. How does it actually make that sweep?
Right, the science bit. At its heart, it's a voltage-controlled low-pass filter. So the filter cuts off high frequencies.
Okay.
And the point where it starts cutting, the cutoff frequency, that's controlled by the volume, the amplitude of the signal you feed it, your guitar signal.
So if I hit a note really hard.
Loud note, high voltage signal. The pedal sees that and tells the filter, sweep higher, let more treble through, makes it sound brighter, more open.
As the note fades out.
Volume drops, voltage drops, the filter closes down, cutting more highs, making the tone darker. That up and down movement is the wah sound. It's dynamic, it follows you.
Which is why it sounds so funky and vocal. And unlike some later envelope filters with tons of knobs, the M120 is famously simple, just two controls.
Just two, that's its whole deal. You've got threshold and attack. That's it.
Okay, threshold. That's like the trigger point.
Exactly. Sets the sensitivity. How loud does your playing need to be before the filter even starts to move? You set that barrier with the threshold knob.
And attack. That must be the speed of the sweep.
Yep. How quickly the filter sweeps open once you cross that threshold. Turn it up for a fast, sharp waka sound. Turn it down for a slower, more bloom-like sweep.
Got it. Now here's something that screams vintage and maybe pain in the neck for modern players. Power.
Oh, yeah. This is pure old school. It runs on a 9-volt battery, period.
No tower jack. No little light to tell you it's on.
Nope. No DC input, no LED. You pop a battery in, and that's your life.
Wow. Okay, that's tough for a modern pedal board setup.
Yeah.
But maybe it's efficient. Does the battery last?
It's actually pretty good on power for its time. Draws only about 1.3 milliamps. So yeah, the battery will last a decent while.
Yeah. Okay, that's something. And technically, was it a well-regarded circuit? Quiet?
Yeah, the specs were solid, dynamic range around 95 dBV, which is good. And the noise floor was low, like Necnicky 5 dBV equivalent input noise.
What does that mean in practical terms? Low noise floor?
It means when you're not playing, the pedal itself doesn't add much hiss or hum to your signal chain. For a 70s pedal, that was actually quite tight. Good engineering there.
But even with good specs, vintage gear often has personality.
Yeah.
Quirks. What are the known issues or, let's say, characteristics of using an M120?
Well, the big one everyone mentions is the threshold knob. People often report it feels, well, somewhat inactive for maybe the first 2/3 of its rotation.
Well, you turn it, and nothing really happens until you get near the top.
Pretty much. The actual sweep, the useful range where it starts responding, often seems crammed into that last quarter or third of the knob's travel.
Huh. Makes it tricky to fine-tune, I bet.
It can be, yeah. And related to that, a lot of users say it needs a pretty strong signal to really get going. You might need to play quite hard or have hot pickups to get a really dramatic sweep unless that threshold is set really low.
So it kind of demands a certain playing style. Doesn't work so well with subtle dynamics if you want the effect.
It seems that way for many units. It might have been just how envelope filters worked back then, or maybe a limitation they accepted. We can also look at the input impedance around 150K.
Which is high-ish, low-ish.
It's on the lower side for a modern pedal, but maybe typical for then. It can make it a bit sensitive to what's plugged into it if the signal hitting it isn't strong and clear.
The threshold might just ignore it.
Exactly. It's not always forgiving. It kind of forces you to meet it on its terms dynamically.
Right, okay, so it's not just plug and play easy, necessarily. Let's talk legacy. It wasn't the Phase 90 mega hit, but that seems to make it more interesting now.
Absolutely. Because fewer were made, or maybe fewer survived in good shape, they're rarer now than the big MXR sellers. Crave Guitars called it a much underrated and very cool little pedal. People love it because it's a bit different, has that specific vintage character.
And when we say vintage character or vintage flavor, we're often really talking about the specific components inside, right? Stuff you can't easily get anymore.
Precisely. That's where the M120 gets really fascinating under the hood. The reason it sounds the way it does and why it's hard to clone perfectly comes down to the integrated circuit chips used, specifically CMOS ICs.
CMOS chips, okay, technical detour time. What are those and why are they important here?
CMOS stands for complementary metal oxide semiconductor. They're a type of digital logic chip, essentially. In the M120, the circuit uses two specific ones, two 4Euro69 chips and one 4Euro66 chip.
4Euro69 and 4Euro66.
Got it. The 4069 is basically a bunch of inverters, and the 4066 is a set of switches. But in audio circuits, especially vintage ones, these specific chips, when pushed, don't behave perfectly cleanly. They add their own subtle color, maybe a bit of grit, or a unique response curve.
So swapping them out for modern equivalents wouldn't sound quite the same.
Almost certainly not. The slight imperfections and specific electrical behavior of those vintage CMOS chips are a huge part of the M120's unique voice. They're not just implementing the design, they're part of the sound.
It really is a time capsule then. But the core design must be good, because it still inspires people today.
Oh yeah, it's a classic circuit template. You see builders like Drunk Beaver Effects basing pedals on it, like their Odessa envelope filter. But crucially, they often add things.
What kinds of things do they add, and what does that tell us about the original?
Well, the Odessa adds extra controls toggles for inverting the envelope, changing decay time, range, things the original just didn't have, giving more flexibility.
Makes sense for modern players.
But the really telling addition, linking back to what we discussed about sensitivity, they added input and output buffers using transistors, BJTs.
Buffers. Those help stabilize the signal impedance, right? Make it less picky about what comes before or after it.
Exactly. And the builder specifically mentioned adding them to reduce tonality shifts when you plug in different guitars or amps.
Ah, so that confirms it. The original M120 is sensitive to the gear around it. Its sound can change depending on your signal chain.
You'd strongly suggest that, yeah. That 150K input impedance interacting with different pickup outputs or other pedals,
Yeah.
it could subtly alter how the filter responds. That sensitivity is part of its vintage charm, or maybe its vintage frustration, depending on your view.
It's a package deal. You get the cool dynamic sweep, but you also get the sensitivity. A beautifully complex, simple pedal, as you said.
Totally. Just two knobs, beige box, runs on a battery. But underneath, it's this interplay of a clever circuit, specific old chips, and this demand it places on the player and their gear. That's vintage character defined.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for someone learning about the M120 today?
I think it's about elegant design under constraints. MXR made this really responsive, quiet pedal that had to work on just a 9-volt battery. That limitation, plus the specific sound of those 4069 and 4066 CMOS chips, it kind of baked in a unique sonic signature.
A signature that became really hard to replicate once those specific chips weren't common anymore.
Exactly. It's a perfect little snapshot of 1970s analog design philosophy.
Okay, so we've really hammered home how much this specific pedal sound relies on those particular vintage CMOS chips, the 4069s and 4066s, and those parts are only getting older and harder to find. So here's something to think about. Think about your favorite piece of vintage gear. Could be anything, an old synth, a compressor, whatever. What's the one part inside it, the one component, that you think is truly irreplaceable? And what actually happens to that special vintage flavor when those key parts eventually just run out?